We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Thursday. You know what that means. Typically on Thursdays, Old Soul is with us. We've had a run of guests on the show, a lot of great guests. Old Soul is a mainstay, and everybody looks forward to her coming on. So, Old Soul, thanks for joining us on your regular time slot.
Hey, I'm here. I'm
Good.
happy, and I told you right before we started recording because I'm going to the Harris Waltz rally that they're having here on Saturday. So
Wow.
I'm still like hyped up because I found out that we was going right before we started recording. So I'm like,
That should be fun. We'll talk more about walls and all that stuff. I just want to catch people up on your current life of, I won't say turmoil, but you always got some shit going on. So what's going on
I
now?
do. I have a girl here. She is underage, but she snuck here. Like she got documentation, everything like sent. And when she came and I went and I picked her up, I was like, she's not 18. Like I know she's not 18. But she was just like, yeah, I just look young, blah, blah, blah. And so my daughter and I were sitting there talking, and I'm like, she is not 18. So the wild child got up, went in there, and then she came back like 20 minutes later and she was like, yeah, she has something to tell you. So she actually went in there and talked into telling us the truth. So, moral of the story is her mom is like hardcore, like MAGA type of person, and they were couch surfing and living out of their car. Like that's how they were doing. And she still hasn't told us who it was, but I'm just assuming that it was one of the people who her mom just like left her with while they was couch surfing.
Right.
She showed me like pictures, like her mom has like Trump tattoos, like I thought
Oh,
the wild child's mom was crazy, but this lady seems like she's like a little bit extra. But come to find out, I was like, I got to tell like one of your parents, like, where's your dad? So come to find out, when talking to the dad, the mom took her and left, and he just kind of like paid his child support. He has his daughter on his insurance, which she didn't even know that. She was just told that her dad like left us. He got married to somebody else. They have their kids. He doesn't have anything to do with you. Legal terms, that's parents' alienation of affection, is from what I was told.
right.
And we reached out to him like, hey, this is going on. He like hopped on a plane and he was here like that. Um, but it's a big thing because she's not saying who did it. And he doesn't want to let it go, which I don't blame him. But at the same time, like you can't force her to say that. But he did say that when she gets the medical needs that she needs to have here, she's going back home with him. He was like, don't worry about no clothes, don't worry about this, don't worry about nothing. Like we can start over. And so like her stepmom, and she has like a couple little siblings and stuff, was like asking for her size, getting her clothes and all that stuff. And the sad part about it is she was like so upset, and she was like, I can't leave my mom. I don't want to leave my mom. But we're slowly like talking to her, getting her to understand like you're a child. You need like a home, stability. You need to be going to school every day. Like there's things that you need. You can still talk to your mom, FaceTime her, have a relationship with her, but couch surfing, leaving you with people that will harm you is not a situation that your father is not going to let you go back into.
Right.
And they had like a couple of long conversations because she really did think that he abandoned them for his current wife and her younger half siblings, when that is not it at all. Like her mom literally took her and moved to another state. And his fault in it, and he did admit it. My daughter was telling him, like, you have to own up to your part so she'll trust you. And he said he was thinking, like, he was trying to reach out. Her mom wouldn't let her. So he was just kind of like, I'm paying my child support. I'm keeping my receipts. I have her covered under health insurance. Like, when she's old enough and she reaches out to me, I'll be able to give her these documents and prove to her that I was there, but it was
Right.
her mom keeping me from her. So he had to own up to the fact that I shouldn't have gave up on trying to see you. And then like this probably wouldn't have happened if I would have pushed the issue.
Right.
Um, so it's pretty sad, but she still has so much loyalty to her mother. Like
You know what I
she's
find
gonna
the
go back with her dad, but she is like, I don't want to leave my mom like that. I need to go look out after my mom. Like she wants to be with her mother so bad, but it's not a good situation for her to be in at all.
what I find the most interesting of this whole thing is we've heard stories like this before. This not as tragic as some others, but certainly concerning. Um, but what I find interesting is the wild child. A
Mhm.
wild child came to you in a similar circumstance with a crazy mom, and you took care of her. And then she went down to stay with her grandmother in Arizona. And then she went over to Texas and she got into some shit, and you went and helped her out. And then you brought her back. And I told you, as close as you were beginning to deal with her, you pretty much adopted this kid. And now she's back at your house visiting or something. But not only is she doing that, she's now counseling other girls coming through. That's quite a turnaround.
I'm like smiling because I'm so proud of her. Like people always say, "Oh, she's so lucky that she came there," but we're lucky too. We used to have, I was telling her this a while ago. I was like showing her the photo album, and it was like these like cook-offs that our family used to have. And she's like, "Why did you guys stop having cook-offs?" And I was like, "Well, that's pretty much like my grandmother and her siblings that would like put these cook-offs together." And I was telling her how it worked. We would get like people in the neighborhood and fire department, police departments, or whatever, and they would come over and be the judges for the cook-offs. But once my grandmother passed away and stuff, we just kind of like stopped doing them. But anyway, it was my turn to host. And this is like a few weeks ago that I told her this. And I was like, you know what, I'm tired. I'm really not feeling it. There's somebody here. Like, I can't focus on that. And she was like, well, I'll do it. And I'm like, you don't understand. Like, my family, when you mess up their food and like a family dinner, you can never like live that down.
Right.
And so she sent a group text to like the family group chat. And she said the theme was going to be like chili dogs. I'm like, what the heck? And so then I wake up in the morning and there's like a flyer on my door that was like, it's a chili cook-off. That's going to be like the thing. And so her and my daughter, like up in the middle of the night, they drove to my family's houses and was putting like the flyers on their doors and stuff. So it was really, really fun. I had my at the clubhouse in my TT stage, it was like the ladies. I thought the ladies were going to be the judges for the cook-off, but I'm like, why do we need like this big like place for like just a cook off for the family? And then like, I don't know, maybe like 40 minutes later, I look up and there's like fire department, like firefighters, like walking through the door. And her and my daughter had went and begged these guys to be the judges for our cook off. And they were like, chili cook off? Yeah, we're there. So it was really cool. I'm like so like excited because we hadn't done that in so long. And then we had so much fun. She would like out of her way and like put it together. My daughter helped her, but like kept it a secret and everything. So it was like, I'm still smiling because we had so much fun. It was crazy. And you should have seen the ladies. Like, these are senior citizens. And these firefighters walk in and they all kind of like perk. But it was fun. It was really, really fun.
You do know now that you're going to have to put. You're a young woman, so that's helpful. But you are going to have to put her in the will because she's becoming legitimately part of the family.
Mm-hmm.
She's well, it's just pretty amazing the turnaround, and that can be attributed to you and your family and all the things you've done for her and other young women and girls, even in this case. So we'll keep us up to date with what happens with your current
I
client.
will. And one more thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to the rally on Saturday. And so I call her grandmother and I'm like, hey, after the rally, we're all going to be hyped up. You're just 4 hours away. We'll just drive her home because she was supposed to go back home. And her grandmother's like, no, she's making this fuss about she wants to come here and get her. And I'm like, this is so weird. Like, I'm on the phone like 20 minutes arguing, like, no, we can drop her off. We want to like detour, get a couple of lottery tickets, whatever. Like, there's no need for you to drive to Vegas. And I'm like, you know what, fine, whatever. Just come get her if that's what you want to do. So I get off the phone and her and my daughter are like making these faces at each other. And I'm like, there's something going on that I don't know about. And my daughter's like, lip sealed. She's not saying nothing, but not the wild child. So she's like, remember that double date that my grandma went on the last time they were here? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, she's been talking to that guy ever since we got back home. I think Gran wants to get down here because she got like a little boot thing. So I have someone and her father here. So I'm like, let me figure out where they can stay. And then come to find out, her grandmother already made plans with my TT to like crash with her. And I was
Wow.
just like, oh, so she is coming down here to see her little, I keep saying her little friend, but the wild child keeps calling him a boo thing. But that's kind of cute too. And it's crazy because a lot of people, they come, they leave. Sometimes they keep in touch, sometimes they don't. But I've had her like the whole time, even when she's like tripping and she's having her issues. We can normally get her back pretty quickly. But yeah, it's been
Wow.
pretty interesting with her. And
Well,
now her grandmother got a boo thing out here.
Old Soul's got a ever-growing family of rainbow colors, white, black, it doesn't matter. And that's
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be, honestly. You know, whenever you come in here, there's a week between time. And these days, it seems like so much shit happens in that 1 week. And I know every time I see something happen, I know Old Soul's going to have something to say about this. Um, what were your thoughts? You know, we were going through this whole thing with who was Kamala Harris going to choose as the vice presidential nominee. Um, I will to say this: I did a show with Christy.
Hmm.
Was it yesterday? It might have been yesterday.
Yeah, I think that was yesterday. Yeah.
Yesterday, and we recorded it prior to her picking, or prior to Kamala picking the VP. And both Christy and I said it's going to be Walz. So we look like
Yeah.
fucking geniuses. But I don't think you saw Walz as the VP
I
candidate
did. I
initially,
was
did
the
you?
Tim Walz stan. The last time I talked, I was like, I rooted for him. I saw like everything that he had did as a governor. And one of the things that I liked about him was he didn't have any I don't know, he didn't have a problem pushing back for what he thought was right. So if you take someone with a 1 seat majority and they're able to get like free lunches, breakfast and lunch, and it's just kind of like one of the things that's near and dear to my heart is when he wanted to give felons the right to vote. And I'm just like, it's crazy that MAGA is coming after him for that and they forget about Trump's crimes, but whatever. And so I was such a stan of his because for me, if he takes that to Washington, D.C., like one of the biggest complaints that Democrats have is they don't fight as hard as Republicans do. And Tim Walz is that guy that's like, yeah, we're going to fight just as hard. So I do
Right,
think he's the type of person that will try to compromise and then try to get it done with them. And if they don't want to get on board, he'll just be like, fine, you have an opportunity to work with us and then you can get some of your things in this bill as well. But if you don't want to do that, we're going to do what we need to do and you're not going to have any say so in it. So I don't think he's the type of person that has a problem with it not being bipartisan if he feels that it's something that's right or something that needs
right,
to be done. I think
right,
he kind of looks at the Republican Party like I do, like they're children. These are your choices. You may not like them, but once you make your choice, it's my responsibility to follow through and make sure I mean what I say and I say what I mean. And I think he only maybe had to do that a couple of times before the people under him like got in line really quickly and were willing to work with him. And I
right.
think that's what we need in DC. Just imagine like as hard as Republicans fight for stupid stuff, I don't know, impeaching Hunter Biden or whatever. Just imagine having someone like him fighting such as hard for gun reform or universal health care or, you know, the free college in his state. I think it was like under 80,000 is free community college.
Right.
Just imagine if he did that nationally. And so I was so happy when she chose him because I was a stan. And I saw like Republicans lose it. And then I was listening to Trump when he called into Fox this morning. I knew he was going to do it. And he was saying everybody thought it was going to be Shapiro. We thought it was going to be Shapiro. But they had their ducks in a row and they were ready to just trash Shapiro. And she picked him Watson. Once again, it completely just threw them off. So,
Well, you know how the Republicans fuck around and find out every time they try
ooh,
some little ploy or little strategy, they always fail.
yeah,
When Joe Biden was the nominee, they talked shit about him, discredited him, said he should quit, they should take him out. So then they do that, and he steps aside, and they give it to Kamala Harris, and immediately they're thinking, "Oh boy, we did it! Now we'll kick this black woman's ass, no problem." But then it blows up, and it's got this huge energy and this huge momentum, and the money just keeps coming fucking in. They
yeah,
did the same thing with the vice presidential thing.
yeah,
They there was a big campaign against Josh Shapiro. I don't know if you heard that, but a lot of people were pushing back against Josh Shapiro, and that was
yeah,
largely put together by Harlan Crow and some Republicans because they saw it as well. If she picks Shapiro, then they automatically win Pennsylvania, which isn't true. So they were worried
yeah,
about that. So then when Josh Shapiro wasn't picked, they're going, oh my God, just the way we wanted it. They're not going to pick Josh Shapiro. And they picked Tim Walz, and it fucking explodes again. This shit just keeps exploding in their face every time they try to do some ploy or some dirty trick. this is why I don't worry about them cheating in the elections. They just continually fail and fail every time.
Yeah, I think the reason that that keeps happening is when you run an entire presidential campaign. This isn't even like local. This is a presidential campaign. It's retribution, it's fear, and it's kicking down other people. There is no policy there. There's no cohesive message there at all. You know, when you say something like make America great again, and you have Kamala Harris and Tim Walz saying, we will not go back, it puts a picture in people's mind of them trying to take us back to like the dark ages.
Right.
And so the slogan is old. It's like stuck in the past and you have something new and fresh going on. And I don't think that their bubbles realize how offensive they are. Like they're so used to being in their bubbles, they don't know what's normal. Like my brother, his battle buddies, and other military people that I know, they are so pissed right now at JD Vance for coming after Tim Walz and his service. Because they were like, there's no way that they don't understand what happened. So I guess he did like 24, 25 years. And I guess when you're coming to like the end, they'll come up to you like maybe a year and a half or so before your retirement. And they're like, hey, do you want to do this again? How many years? Or do you want to retire? And then there's like a team of people that work with you on like your retirement and your payouts and all that stuff. And so this is something that he had done a year in advance.
Right.
So when his time came up, his time was up. And so he just followed through with his retirement like he had planned on doing. But what it is JD Vance is out here trying to make it look like he's lying. And the crazy part about it is people in the military, they know what the truth is. And so it's like you're down talking another service person, you're lying about their record, you're doing it on purpose. And then when you look at JD's service in the military, it was kind of like a publicist or something like that.
He worked
so
in
they
a
were like, so how,
he worked in
yeah,
public affairs. And there was
how are
something
you
else.
kicking,
There was something else
how are you
about Tim
kicking him
Walz
down?
too. There was also something else about Tim Walz. Tim Walz worked in artillery, and he lost a lot of his hearing, and he needed to get a surgery and stuff. So he was
Yeah,
kind of disabled at the time when he decided to retire, as well as he doing it a year in advance before it gets deployed. This just shows
yeah,
how desperate they are. JD Vance was in the service, and he was in public affairs, which means he put on events. He drove reporters around. It's not like he saw combat or that he was in any dangerous situation. So for him to call out Tim Walz, who actually did some things while he was in the service,
yeah,
Tim Walz never said he saw combat. Doesn't matter. The fact that you're giving your life to the service is still admirable, even for JD Vance. But JD Vance wants to make it out like he's a war hero, and
yeah.
Tim Walz isn't. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and then we have to remember too, my brother, and so like the military people I know were just pissed. And then I saw a little snippet from Ojeda, and he was like going off too. So I'm like, oh, this must be like a military thing. I don't
Yeah.
understand. Like they lie on people all the time, but they were like pissed, like next level pissed. And then you have to remember, like a week ago, they were suing Gretchen Whitmore to make it more difficult for servicemen and veterans to vote. So it's like you did this stunt last week where you're trying to make it more difficult for them to vote. And then JD Vance turns around and do this. It's like, I'm trying to think of a group of people that they haven't like offended yet. And so I'm just going with evangelical Republican white men. It's like the only group left that they just really haven't offended.
That's
But
about
I'm
it.
pretty sure they're working on that.
They're
Working on
working. They were working overtime and trying to come out with ways to discredit Tim Walz. They said he was too liberal. And that was
it.
based on him doing a lot of things in Minnesota. But if you go back to when he was in Congress, he was more in the middle. He was very bipartisan. As you mentioned, he was willing to go across the aisle to get things done. And if you talk to anybody that served with him in Congress, they will say the same thing. So that doesn't pan out. He's not too liberal. He got a lot of things done, like with all the things that he did. Codifying Roe v. Wade in Minnesota, getting free breakfast and lunches for kids, getting bigger background checks on guns, and
Yeah, he did a
paid
lot.
paid leave and all this stuff. Tell me which one of those things is bad. I mean, you
But
can call
that's
them ultra liberal, but none of those things are bad. These are good for the people who are fucking voting.
Yeah, but they're not saying that he's ultra liberal. They're saying he's like an extreme radical leftist. And then when you sit there and you say freeing children is extreme radical left, giving women access to their own bodily autonomy, that's extreme radical leftist, making sure that college is affordable, that's extreme radical leftist. They are so out of touch with people want. And I saw Jesse Waters like blowing up talking about there was tampons in the boys' restroom at a school. And it's just like, what? And so they're trying to find reasons. It's like Laura Ingraham when she shows clips of Kamala Harris hugging people and they're calling her the hugger in chief. It's just kind of like, when did hugging people become a bad thing? And
Yeah.
you've been around me, you already know I'm a hugger. So it's just kind of like, when did that become a bad thing? So I think they're really grasping at straws. And then another thing they're saying is he's like Bernie. But they don't understand, like every year there's a poll that goes out and Bernie is always in the top 5 of the
Yeah.
most popular members of Congress. So I think like this year he was like number 4. So it's
Right.
just kind of like he's the 4th popular person in Congress out of how
Right.
many people? And you're going to sit here and you're going to compare Tim Walz to him. Where's the negative?
Here's
I
the
think
interest.
they're just on a different. What did the wild child calls it? Oh, she says they live on the land of make believe.
Right. Right.
I'm
Well,
starting to believe that's true.
here's the one thing they're trying to do too. It's not getting as much traction for obvious reasons. Um, Somebody came up with some. I don't even know if it's true, but it could be, saying that Tim Walz got a DUI 35 years ago.
Hmm.
And they're going, oh my, he got a DUI. That's crazy. But what's really crazy is when you think about it, you're complaining about Tim Walz getting a DUI 30 or 35 years ago. Yet your guy at the top of the ticket got 34 felony convictions 6 fucking months ago. How do you even bring that argument up? You don't talk about that if you're worse off than what you're complaining about.
Yeah, I did look and he did get the DUI, but the thing about it is he was like that person that was like, oh, I need to get my stuff together. And he just completely stopped drinking. Like he doesn't drink anymore. And he's just like, you know what I mean? It's not something that he hides from and it's not something that he runs away from. But when you go to someone and say, you know, I was young, I was a kid, I did something I wasn't supposed to, and I never did it again. It's just like, how many Americans can relate to that? Like, I have never gotten pulled over, but when I was younger, I'm pretty sure I drove a time or two that I probably shouldn't have.
Oh,
But I just feel like they're trying to say that he is this radical leftist. And then at the same time, they're trying to hold him to a perfected level. And that doesn't hit right when most Americans can relate to what he went through. But not only that, but respect the fact that that's what it took to straighten him up. He didn't need to get 3, 4, 5 DUIs or a
right,
vehicular homicide or something to straighten his act up. So it's just
right,
kind of like, I don't know. It's like everything they're trying to hit him with, it's not landing. They're just swinging, and it takes more effort to swing and miss than it does to swing and hit. And
right.
they're just swinging, and they're not landing anything. So
Well,
I don't
I,
understand what's going on with them.
I'm 64 years old. I was in my teens in the 70s. There's a lot of shit I did. That's why I don't run for office because people would come by and say, in 76, you did this. Yeah, I did. I did some shit. Um, not to forgive anybody with a DUI or anything like that. It's a terrible thing. I will say back in that era, it was a much different culture when it came. I mean, I will tell you when in the 70s, and I'm not proud of it, drinking and driving wasn't a thing. You just didn't drink as much if you were going to drive, but drinking and driving happened all the time. And there wasn't the stigma. There should have been, but there wasn't.
Mhm.
And as I think back to those times, it's terrifying to me now to imagine some of the goofy, stupid shit I did and my friends did. But it just, it's so silly for somebody to complain about uh, uh, a criminal act, a DUI in 30 years ago. Uh, and they're sitting there with 34 felony convictions like that's nothing. Oh, that doesn't count. I mean, it's just so absurd. You want to slap them because nobody in their right mind would make that argument with that kind of track record behind them.
Yeah, it's the hypocrisy, but it's at a point to where it's so obvious. And then I was seeing that on Truth Social, Trump is being trolled on Truth Social. It's just kind of like this man cannot breathe.
No.
He's getting trolled everywhere. But it just feels like it's like at this point it's a joke. So even I feel like if some dark skeleton did come out of Tim Walz's closet, it wouldn't even land. Nobody would believe it because they just clutch their pearls, and it's like such a fake outrage over everything. Which, if there was something that actually did come out, people would automatically assume that you're overreacting because that's a
Right.
pattern of behavior that you have. It's so weird to me to watch. It's kind of weird. It's kind of funny, but it's kind of scary at the same time to watch them flail and fumble as much as they are. Even with, I don't know if you saw that letter that post that Trump made saying that I guess Biden's going to come to the DNC and he's going
He
to
wishes.
demand his spot back. And once he demands his spot back, he's going to challenge Trump to a debate.
That's a delusional motherfucker. I tell you that. You brought something else up too. You said how he was complaining about Donald Trump or Tim Walz giving convicted felons the opportunity to vote.
Yeah.
And here's what's interesting about that. The law that was passed in Minnesota means if you were convicted of a felony and not in jail, you could vote. If you were in jail, clearly you can't vote. Now, what's
Mhm.
so ironic about this, it's the very same law they have in New York that allows convicted felon Donald Trump to vote in November. He's complaining about the law that's going to allow him to fucking vote. It's so ridiculous. He doesn't think about what he's saying.
I think everyone was sitting around and it's like that one lost steam so quickly because it was just so
Stupid.
obvious. But when they complained about that, we are all like, okay, who's going to tell them that?
And why do we have
Who's
to
going to
tell him?
tell them? Not you guys are complaining that convicted felons can vote. However, you're going to give the position of American president to a convicted felon 34 times over.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, I don't understand the logic. I think that they are really trying, but they're just not landing anything. But that's what happens when you don't run on policy. Because if you have a platform on policy, this is what we're going to do for the American people. This is how we're going to make your life easier. You can just run off of that. You don't have to attack anyone. You can just run off policy. You can throw your little jabs in there, but at the same time, you have to have something to run on. And then outside of personal insults, what policy can they attack? He's giving kids free lunches. We don't stand for that. He's making college affordable. We don't stand for that. Like, you can't combat the policies that they have. Kamala Harris keeps saying this is a people campaign, and that's what it is. They don't have anything for the American people. And it's 2024, not 2016. Those tactics don't work anymore. And then this is the time when people start paying attention. So yeah, he was like kind of up in the polls when wasn't nobody paying attention, but now people are paying attention, and every single day, Trump reminds us why we didn't vote for him in 2020. Every day he reminds us of that.
I'm curious. I know you liked Tim Walz before the choice was made. Why do you think Kamala picked Tim Walz over the other possibilities?
Part of the reason that it's not that I think Shapiro was a bad pick, but
Oh,
he
no.
was such like this dynamic figure. I could not see him kind of like sitting in the back. Like, he's not a good backseat driver. I
Right.
can't imagine him just kind of like sitting in the back, being her backup, having her back and playing his role. It's kind of like he likes the spotlight a little too much. And I think she picked up on that. And it may not even be that he likes the spotlight. It's just that he is that type of a person where he would gravitate towards the front. And
Right.
that's not the role of a VP. I do think that Tim Walz is like the perfect person to be a partner and the perfect person to be your backup partner. I do think he would be more suited for that role than Shapiro would be. I think Shapiro is like one of them people like in 5 years we're going to be like, oh, yep, there he is. He's going to be
Right.
doing something big. I just don't think that was a good fit for him. He's too, like, his star is a little too bright for that.
Right. Now, I think Shapiro sees himself as lead singer in a rock band. Whether he is
Yeah.
now or
Uh-huh.
not, he will be in the future. I think Tim Walz is just fine playing bass off on the side. He's cool with
Yeah.
that. And I think Shapiro does have plans of, and I'm sure she asked this question too. Do you want to be president someday? And I can
Mm.
guarantee you, Shapiro said yes. I could see Tim Wall saying that's never been my goal. The idea that he might be or will be vice president is fucking crazy as it is. He's an older man. He's 60. By the time the 8 years are done, he'll be 68. He'll probably want to retire because at that point, younger people will be coming up from behind. So I think that had some part to play in it. And I think just how they get along. I think Kamala learned a lot by being vice president to Joe Biden because they have a genuinely warm relationship.
Mhm.
And I think she sees how important that is. And it's hard not to have a warm relationship with a guy like Tim Walz. He's just that kind of guy. People say he's kind of the typical Midwestern dad, and that's kind of true. That's who he
Yeah.
is. He's going to
I
have you
think,
come, if you come by, he's going to change oil in your car and he's going to make his hot dish, tater tot hot dish. But I just want to say this too. I can't remember who said this because I know you'll have something to say about it. This person, whoever said it, maybe it was just somebody on TikTok, maybe it was somebody of note. I don't know, but it was very poignant. And they said people are falling in love with Tim Walz, because he is the typical dad that a lot of us had taken away from us. And they were
yeah,
taken away when they got sucked into Rush Limbaugh and Fox News. They were fine up until that time, and then they got sucked away. This one, Tim Walz, doesn't appear as though he's been affected by that cult of behavior. But I really do sense that people feel like he's kind of a fatherly figure.
yeah. And he gives that really like simple, sound advice, and it resonates with everyone. I know, like the Wild Child, she was talking at the dinner about, I don't know, a couple of her friends, something was going on. And Uncle Cleo, he looked at her and he's like, what that got to do with you? And she was just like, nothing. He's like, why are you worried about it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Simple. And I think when Tim Waltz says, hey, just mind your own damn business, I wouldn't make that decision, but that ain't got nothing to do with me. That's not going to take food off of my table. It's not going to like ruin my day because my neighbor has an issue. Like, I'm there to be neighborly and help out. But as far as like drama or whatever personal decisions that they make, that's on them. And most people can relate to that
Yeah,
because before the overturning, and then one of the things he said, and it was like when he said it, like I got goosebumps. He was like, who is asking for any of this stuff? Who is going around saying we don't want birth control? Who's going around saying we don't need IVF? Who is going around saying we're going to ban books? He's like, who is asking for this stuff? And when you sit down and you think about it, and it's like, oh, yeah, that's just a power trip. They have a little power and they just run away with it in the wrong direction. So when you think about it, it's just really sound fatherly advice, but it's very simplified. I like how he can break things down and just anybody can pick up on it and anybody can relate to what it is that he's saying versus big vernacular and all this extra stuff. It's just very, very simple
he is. He
and so
is.
easy to
He,
get.
he is smart and articulate, though. It was funny. I was waiting for this. I never said anything about it beforehand, but I thought about it. Um, Tim Walz and I are similar age. He's 60. I'm
Mm-hmm.
64. Got the gray balding hair. You know, the in your face attitude. And one lady came to my comments and said, am I the only one seeing this? Mike, you are Tim Walz. And I go, well, not really. Not really. We're a little different, but I get it. We're of the same age, from the same area. All those grew up in the same kind of situation. So it isn't unusual that there might be people with some similarities. Old white guys. This may sound racist, but old white guys all look alike.
I saw like I think Midas Touch like was playing like somebody said something comparing him to Bernie. I don't know what it was, but Tim Walz's clapback was like, was it the hair that gave it away? He's not him and Bernie have like that same hair. So it's kind of like here's somebody that could just laugh at himself. He's not taking it too seriously. It's like, hey, it is what it is. Like I can't hide this. And he's not trying to. So he's just so down to earth and so relatable. And I think that's what makes people gravitate towards him. Like I was a stan. I'm happy she picked him. And then another thing too, when I was thinking about Shapiro, he's been pretty popular, pretty like in the mainstream. People knew who he
Oh, he's
was, his
good. Yeah.
notoriety. And the good thing about that is we can see his track record. The bad thing about that is you can exploit that same track record. You can just pick and choose whatever you want to try to exploit it. It seemed like Tim Walz was like governor for the right reasons. He really wanted to look out for people and take care of him. And he just kept his head down and like did his work, kind of like a younger version of Joe Biden. He just kept his head down. He did what he had to do. He wasn't about the cameras and the this and the that. And it's kind of hard to go after somebody who just kept their head down and just did their work. How do you attack somebody like that?
You know, he is
It's
so
pretty
much like, he's
difficult.
so much like Joe Biden I mean, a younger Joe Biden. But, you know, much like Joe Biden, he accomplished a lot with very little support in Minnesota. He's kind of down to earth. He's a decent human being. People actually love him because of who he is. And it's the same thing with Joe Biden. I don't know. Maybe Kamala's got daddy issues and had to get somebody just like daddy. That sounds disrespectful. I don't mean it to be. It's just a fucking joke. Any of you want to write me and tell me that's not fair? Shut up. It's a joke. It's my show. We're gonna do what the hell we want to do. But
You know, one of the things about Tim Walz is like he didn't need credit for a lot of things. And I see that in Joe Biden as well. Like as long as it gets done, it's done, who cares about the credit?
yeah,
And something that people overlooked completely when it came to the prisoner swap that they did,
right,
Joe Biden, at the time that he resigned, he already knew this was going to take place.
right,
And he kind of held that and then been like hail the hero and then made that a part of his campaign. But he didn't. He kept that to himself. He resigned because he thought it was the right thing to do. And he didn't exploit the good deed that he did, making sure that those men and women got back home. He didn't exploit that. He didn't use
right.
that. He was just happy that they were home and they were no longer going through what it was that they were going through. And a lot of people overlook the fact that he knew that it was going on. He didn't exploit it. He didn't try to make it a part of his campaign. It was just the right thing to do, and he did it. And I was sitting there and I was trying to think to myself, imagine that in reverse. We would have knew negotiations were going on 6 months ago
Right.
because Trump would have had absolutely no problems exploiting these people and their families. And he actually did that like a month ago. I and I alone can get this prisoner released.
Right.
And Putin will do that for me and me only. And he was actually trying to use that and run on it. And that was like the furthest thing from Joe Biden's mind. And he does not get credit for that by itself. And I was just like, nobody is talking about the fact that he knew this was going to happen when he resigned.
Right.
And he didn't try to exploit it in any way. And I think that proves the type of person that he is. And I kind of get those vibes from Tim Walz as well. I can't see him exploiting
No.
these like real like political prisoners, basically. Those Jan Sixers, that's not what they are. These were real political prisoners, and Biden refused to exploit that. So I think a lot of people overlook that, but I noticed that like right when that happened.
Well, there's a lot of reasons why you don't jump the gun and talk about things for strategic or political reasons. You keep it quiet until it's all set. Donald Trump has trouble doing that. One thing I will say, and I think they'll be fine. I think he knows this, and I think Kamala knows this. Tim Walz has come out. He's been a phenom like Kamala did. People love him. They got the jokes, they got the memes, they got the videos. You know, he's got a video with his daughter at the state fair, and he says, "What do you say we go get uh, uh, corn dogs?" And she goes, "I'm a vegetarian." He goes, "Okay, then it's turkey." He says, "Turkey is meat too. Not in Minnesota. It's special." You know, it's just he's a funny guy. But I think what we have to do is let him have the time for the next week or so, but then at some point we need him to pull back a little bit because the
Yeah.
focus really needs to be on Kamala. She's the one we're really selling. I look at it like this: when I used to do sports play by play, and when I say this, listen very carefully because somebody called me out on this and they didn't get what I was saying. Kamala is like the play by play announcer. Okay. Tim Walz should be like the color man, not colored, color man. Somebody swore to God they said,
We know you're not Fox News.
no, but he be the color man. And what that means is fill in the dead spots, keep it rolling, just be there when you need him, but not being out front all the time. And he's not the kind of guy that would do that, but people love this guy so much. We have to be a little careful of that. Keep it,
Yeah.
make him a nice little spice to Kamala's main dish because Kamala is what we're trying to sell here. She's the one that's running for president, and we got to keep the excitement behind her too. He's helping her now, but we can't take the attention away from Kamala.
Yeah, you know what? When you mentioned his daughter, I saw that video of them at the state fair and my heart just dropped. And I was like, looking at her with her dad, and like, yeah, her life is not going to be the same for I don't like how long because here comes MAGA and the death threats. I couldn't even enjoy that moment of her with her father without my mind thinking that because she was just like so cute, so innocent. And it's just like, yeah, these people are just to attack her and her family like you've never seen before. But I do think with Tim Walz, his he has like a target audience. He balances the ticket that Midwestern that we have going on. I think he needs to be more targeted in those areas and not just like
Right.
the full blown like tour that we're getting right now. It's like there's certain locations where he can step up, but not for every single location, is what I was thinking. But I do think right now he kind of has to ride that wave through the DNC, and then after that, hopefully they'll start to like taper off a little bit. He can,
Right.
flip back into his role a little bit because I don't think Kamala Harris is the type that would mind sharing the spotlight. But hopefully there's people around her that will know the strategy, like, hey, you need to step up a little more and you need to like fall back a little bit.
One of the reasons I think Kamala picked him too is she's been point person for women's reproductive rights. And he
Mhm.
was too here in Minnesota. But the
Yes.
interesting thing is both his children, Hope and Gus, were through IVF,
Yeah.
the very thing that the Republicans want to take away. I mean, he told a very sad story how they were trying and trying, and through IVF, um, they finally had their first kid, the daughter. And because it was through IVF and they've been trying so hard, and now she's going to be here, that's why they chose to call her Hope. I mean, hearing the stories from Tim Walz is almost like a Hallmark movie. You can't,
Yeah.
and he's not faking this shit. That's just who he is.
Mhm. Yeah, I saw that he had never read off of a teleprompter before. And I'm like, I couldn't even tell. He was just kind of like winging it, going along. And then like once I found that out when I was watching earlier today, I was like, oh yeah, I can kind of see him veering off a little bit. But he just like came right back to it. And I was just like, he's such a natural speaker. And I think that's just because he's like such a likable person. He's like, yeah, it's whatever. He doesn't trip.
Right.
And I did see that part when they had that heckler in the crowd. And the wild child, she's like, yep, that's that look. You've given me that look a couple times. And she's like, I can feel my bones shaking. I know she's like, you don't say nothing, you just look at me. And I'm like, I have that look. But when I saw Kamala Harris do it, I was like, yeah, they came to the wrong rally for that.
Yeah, you don't want to fuck with Kamala. Well, I tell you what, old soul, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Yeah.
We're back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Old Soul is with us. We're getting into more about Tim Walz and Donald Trump and all this stuff. I have to tell you a story, Old Soul, because you always tell the
Yeah.
stories about your daughter and all this stuff. My wife and I, my son's getting ready to move. He's getting married and all that stuff. And uh, we went to a park to meet up with um, my granddaughter and um, just a chance to see her and help out, grab some things and pull them out of the place. And we're at this little like fair event type thing. And she says to her dad, Dad, I want ice cream. Dad says, well, we'll get it later. She goes, Grandpa? I go, which ice cream do you want? I want the Ninja Turtle one. And then we go by the mini donuts and she goes, donuts. I go, yeah, I like those donuts too. She says, my wife says she's not going to get to sleep because she's having too much sugar. I go, but I like donuts. And she says, Grandma, he likes donuts. So I bought the donuts and we ate the donuts and stuff. And there was another place giving away suckers, Tootsie Rolls or Tootsie Pops. So I grabbed a couple for her and my son says, no, you can't have them until we get home or tomorrow or something. And she says, Grandpa, get two. So I got her two, you know. But it's funny, she's 4 years old and she's getting smarter every day. And
Yeah.
um, she says to me, now remember, she got a 12-year-old brother. She goes, she starts saying this all the time. She said, bruh, take a look at this. I go, what? She
No,
goes,
she's
bruh.
not.
Yeah, she is. So then I started calling her bruh. And she goes, Grandpa, you can't say that. I said, sure I can. She says, you can't. Why can't I say that? And uh, she said, because you're a grandpa. You're not a kid. I said, but I'm a cool grandpa. She goes, okay, you can say it. So she and I are calling each other bruh the whole day after that. And it's just weird watching these kids. It reminds me of when I had kids and they would do crazy shit and amazing stuff and things that always took me by surprise. But she's getting older now. She's pumped full of sugar right about now. Yeah, because we left her a couple hours ago. And Dad's
You
going to
know,
have to
I'm
fucking deal with it.
surprised her dad didn't send her home with you and Cindy. Like when she comes down off that sugar rush, I'll come get her.
That, well, you know, I think my son thinks I undermine him a little bit sometimes, which I do. I admit it. She one time said, I want to do this, but my dad said no. I say, your dad said no. So you have to do what your dad told you, right? She says, yeah. I said, here's the thing, honey. He's your dad, but I'm his dad. So I get to call whatever the hell I want. She goes, yeah, you're his dad. Uh, what if he doesn't do it? Are you going to spank him? Well, he's 6'3", 240. I'm probably not going to spank him, but let's just go with it. Let's worry about asking for forgiveness as opposed to permission. And so I got her learning that little lesson. I don't know that I'm a good influence, but we have fun, and that's the important thing. I wanted to bring up something. I only tell that story because people always say, tell more stories about your granddaughter. And you have all these stories about your family. I'm feeling a little fucking left out. So it wasn't quite as intense or stressful, but bruh. Anyway, it's just weird
I
seeing a
can't believe
four.
she said bruh now. Like
It's weird. It's a weird thing seeing your 4-year-old granddaughter call you bruh. I, but that's probably because she has a 12-year-old brother. Um, when Tim Walz was doing his this I found interesting when he was doing his speech in Michigan. Was it Michigan?
mhm,
No, Wisconsin. It was in Wisconsin. Um, and he stopped in the middle of the speech. He apparently saw somebody in the crowd that was having trouble with heat or not doing well. So he stopped and he paid
yeah.
attention and made sure they got water. And he stopped for like 2, 3, 4 minutes doing it, because that's kind of his personality. And what do you think the Republicans said after that?
I wasn't paying attention. I did see that it was a woman at when Kamala Harris was speaking as well, and she had to like stop and you know get her attention. And then she also checked. She was like, "We got the EMTs where they need to be." But I don't know how you could spin that. There's someone like having a medical emergency. Apparently, it's kind of hard to stand up there and talk when somebody in front of you is struggling.
Well, Republicans said it was staged. Can you fucking believe that? It was staged. Tim Walz isn't the kind of guy that would stage something like that. He doesn't have he has more integrity than doing that. He doesn't need to do that. I mean, there's no reason for him to do it, but this is typical of what the Republicans continue to do.
Well, that's not going to work considering that 75% of the country thinks that Trump's assassination attempt was staged. So somebody passing out in the front row, like you need to elevate that staging right there.
Well, you're all about true crime and stuff like this. I'm going to ask you something that somebody suggested to me. I never thought of this. I don't even know that I believe it because it's a little conspiracy theory-ish. But with regards to that assassination attempt, and we're having the FBI investigate it, and then we're having people testify, we haven't found out anything about it. No doctor's report. One guy says we're not sure whether or not it was a bullet that hit his ear. One guy says, oh, it was definitely a bullet, but there's been no proof of it. Somebody, and I can't remember who it was, said, well, maybe the administration is saying, just don't talk about this for a bit. Maybe when they come out with the facts, because there's a lot of fishy shit to it, maybe this is the October surprise. That sounds a little crazy to me, but so does the idea of staging an assassination attempt. But that doesn't help the fact that we still have all these questions that go unanswered.
I don't think that it'll be an October surprise, for the simple fact is Trump wants to make it look worse than what it is. Of course, he tells on himself all the time, accidentally. I don't think that he would intentionally snitch on himself. Not only that, but releasing a medical report with his true height without his heels on, his true weight without him just drastically rounding that number down, without knowing what his blood pressure is, what medications he's on, like releasing a full medical report just because he got clipped in the ear from some plexiglass or whatever. He's not going to do that. I don't think that's an October surprise at all.
I'm not suggesting that Donald Trump would do it to himself. I'm saying the FBI is investigating it. The FBI is separate from Trump. If they come up with details of that investigation, you would presume at some point they have to release it. And it better, if the FBI is coming to us with this information, it should be accurate, you would hope. If he was not hit with a bullet, they'd have to say that.
If the Democrats was doing that, yeah, I could see it. If it was like Donald Trump or somebody doing it, I would think that that's not sinister enough. But I think that's the kind of like right level of Democrats doing it. But I do think it would be more strategic. Like they would wait for him to say, I took a bullet for this country again. And then they would like post that out there. I do think that they could possibly do it, but it'll be more strategic where they land that report at, depending on if he's like still trying to play off of it, still going around, I took a bullet for this country and all this stuff. No, you didn't. I think at that would be an opportune time to put that out there. Just like him talking how horrible Tim Walz was, and then all of a sudden this leaked audio comes out. They don't just do stuff for no reason. They just kind of wait for Trump. Like they give him the rope, and then they allow him to hang himself with it. Right. And I think it would be very strategic when they did release that, because I'm pretty sure they know.
You bring up the leaked audio, and I know you wanted to talk about it. Donald Trump goes on to say that when the George Floyd riots happened, that he told Tim Walz to send in the National Guard, and Tim Walz refused to do it. He tried to make him do it, and then eventually Donald Trump just sent him in. Of course, he's the hero. That's not at all what happened. I mean, I live in fucking Minneapolis. I mean, if you listen to a Republican now and they always refer to Minneapolis and the riots and the burning and all that stuff, you think I live in the same area that Mad Max was filmed. And that's not at all the case. We're fine. Even the area where the riots were, that's all rebuilt and, well, mostly rebuilt, and everything is fine. But you said you were talking about a leaked video where Trump and Walz were talking about that time. And you got a different perspective from Trump than what we're hearing now.
Yeah, he was was singing Tim Walz's praises. But it was as much as we should see Donald Trump, his true colors, and the type of just low crawler type of person that he is, still sometimes he just puts it right in your face to where those who have tried to ignore it, you can't ignore it. You can clearly hear Tim Walz saying there are some bad faith people in the crowd, and we need to keep them separate from the peaceful protesters, because right now my city, my state, they're hurting, they're suffering. And he was even talking about putting reforms in place, and he was recognizing that and he even said that they have a reason to feel the way that they're feeling. And Trump was like, yeah, they came in and they did this and they did that. He was like such an immature way to react to people's pain, whether they were lashing out or they were misdirecting that anger and that pain that they were feeling. But there were also bad faith actors there. And Tim Walz, he said that, but he was also more coming from, these people are in pain. We need to start thinking about reforms. We need to make sure that the peaceful protesters are safe. Like, he was speaking like an adult, and you had Trump on the other end of the call, just making it look like G.I. Joe just came down in a helicopter and blasted everybody away. And it was such an immature way to look at it. And he didn't see anyone as human. He didn't recognize that people were genuinely going through something and they were feeling something. He didn't care about that. He just cared about what it looked like on television.
Well,
that was it. And that was all. It was so disgusting. And it's a reminder that he is a malignant narcissist. He can't relate to anything that was going on. And Tim Walz was the opposite. And he was the adult in the room when that happened. The second thing I thought, this man got caught on tape again. Every week he gets caught on tape. It's like, I told you his mouth was going to be his downfall.
Oh,
he just talked too damn much. That's it.
Well, and Tim Walz gave him a bit of a lesson on that phone call. I don't know if you caught this part, but he was talking like G.I. Joe and the cavalry's coming in and all this stuff. And Tim Walz says, you understand that National Guard isn't an occupying force. They're your neighbors, they're your merchants, they're your friends, your uncles, your cousins, your aunts, your sisters. These are all just good people trying to keep the peace and try to keep everything going. And Donald Trump didn't get that. The other thing about that call is, in spite of the fact that Donald Trump is now saying that he sent in the National Guard, that phone call came in 2 days after Tim Walz sent in the National Guard. So the whole thing is absolute bullshit. It's easily fact-checked, and he just doesn't care. He just says whatever he says, and he presumes everybody believes everything he says. And he's really lost some traction with that, because 3/4 of the country do not believe anything he says.
Right. Even when Fox News tried to flip it, and this was before the audio, Kayleigh McEnany, she was on Fox, and she took the video of Tim Walz when he was giving a press conference completely out of context. But even on that clip that she played, he said, hey, if we're talking about this or that, I am responsible for that. I did drop the ball on that. She pointed to him taking responsibility and acknowledging his failure and saying that, he knows how to handle it better the next time. She took that and tried to spin it as a bad thing.
Right.
Even when she played the clip, I was like, where's the bad part? You know what I mean? It's just kind of comparing when you have Trump saying, hey, I'm not responsible for anything. And then you have Joe Biden coming up after the withdrawal from Afghanistan and saying, yes, I'm the president of the United States. I am responsible for that. Like, whatever backlash I get, that's what I get. And then I see Tim Walz do that, and Donald Trump completely incapable of doing that. And then you follow it up with the audio to prove that he was lying his butt off. It's
right.
just, I don't understand why these people, to me, I have too much respect for myself than to go on national television and just sniff his butt the whole way and have absolutely no shame in doing that. Like, I have a family of people around me that would be like, why you got your butt on television looking like that?
Right.
And it's just kind of like they do it day in and day out. And I didn't catch it, but my daughter, she told me, if you look at the segments, they are talking to him. So Laura Ingraham, she was just like looking at the camera and she was like, this is the honeymoon period. It's going to be over soon. It's not going to last long. Like they are talking to him through the television. And then this is something else. I'm just going off track. He was coached because he keeps getting people's names up. Don't say like you're getting people's names mixed up. So don't call people by their name. Just say him, her, and they. And so he'll say, well, he's smarter than her, and they this and they that, because he's been coached. Take people's name out of it, just say him, her, and they, and everybody will know who you're talking about. And that's his new talking point as well. But to bring it back to that, it's like every time he lies and he says something that is not true, I can imagine Fox, OAN, Newsmax, all the right wingers, they have got to be sitting there holding their breath because he is so far out there. He's so braggadocious that they know the proof is going to drop the next day or the day after that. They have to know that the proof is coming.
The one thing about that George Floyd riots, too, some people might say that that Tim Walz didn't act quick enough. Well, the important thing you have to understand, this was an incident, this was an event that happened in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
The first person that's responsible for handling that is Jacob Frey, who is the mayor. And it went way over his head. He didn't know what the fuck he was doing. But Frey needed to reach out to Walz to bring him in. Walz couldn't just step in and do what he wanted. Frey had to bring him in. And Frey didn't know what the fuck he was doing. He's a young guy. He was in way over his head. He was handling something. There's a lot of things that could have been handled better than that. I think Walz did everything he possibly could, given the circumstances of that day. But again, that's a long time ago now. And Donald Trump is just trying to grab at anything to try to discredit or dismiss Tim Walz. And it just isn't working. You know what's interesting? Over 4 days, Tim Walz and Kamala Harris are giving rallies in like 8 or 9 cities. Okay. You know what Donald Trump's got going? He's got one rally in Montana, a state he's going to win, a state that has no electoral votes, and that's all he's doing. When you think about his limitations with money, his limitations in his own mental ability, and the other thing you have to consider is his own stamina. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are just going to run circles around him because he can't keep up. So what they are trying to do is send J.D. Vance after them to try to make it up. Unfortunately, they got 200 people showing up to see J.D. Vance. Nobody wants to see that stupid, crazy motherfucker. But as far as the campaigning goes, Trump doesn't have the money, he doesn't have the stamina, and he doesn't have a VP candidate that can even hang with Kamala or Tim Walz. They're in fucking trouble. They're going to have trouble keeping up over the next 3 months.
Yeah, I think, well, I don't think, I know right now, Trump is a basket case. Like, I don't think that mentally is like physically, mentally, emotionally, his impulse control is horrible. You see the 1, 2 a.m. truths that go out. You see the emails that he's sending is like insane. He has no impulse control, and there's no one there to rein him in. And it kind of confirms what I was thinking, that the powers that be, they want to use Trump and his notoriety to get him into the White House. And then after that, Baker Act him, 25th Amendment, whatever it is that they're going to do. And then they're just going to get rid of him. Right now, he is just the step ladder to where it is that they need to be. But they have to be realizing at this point that that step ladder doesn't hold weight. And there's no way you're going to get to where you need to be using that. And I did see him, because people were saying he's a stalker. Why is he going to where Kamala Harris is? Why is he going to where her plane is? In politics, it's called bracketing, I believe, or bracketed. And it's just basically you take someone else, like your competition that's equal with you, and you hold competing events in the same place. And it's kind of like to see, like, who are they going to choose? Are they going to choose this person or that person? It doesn't work when you have 200 people and the other person literally has 50,000 people. It doesn't work like that. So it would kind of have to be like Patti LaBelle and Aretha Franklin the same night in Vegas at the same time. And people would have to be like, ugh, what concert do I have to go? Do I want to go see? It's a decision that people would battle with making. It's the same thing in politics, like competing governors or something, like who would go and see them. But you have JD Vance, not even Trump, because his MAGA base, they will kind of turn out, not those 50,000 numbers, but they will kind of turn out. So you can give the illusion that it was competing events and it was bracketing going on there. However, you can't do that when you only got 200 and they have 50,000. It
Right.
doesn't work like that. And then he actually went to where her plane was. I didn't get that point at all. And then it's like she was actually in the motorcade in a car. And I think he was trying to make it come off as like a publicity stunt where it's like, hey, I went to go confront her and she ran away. And
No,
it just
no, that's
came
not.
off as creepy and
That
weird.
that's not what happened. He wasn't confronting her. He was trying to be funny and clever, which he is not.
Yeah.
He's embarrassing when he does this. His intent when he went to the plane, because it's the vice president's plane, he said something like, I thought I'd check on my plane after January 20th.
Oh,
I'm going to
yeah.
check on, see my plane after it's done. And, he's walking away from it. It just didn't play. I mean, if you're not funny, don't try to be funny, because it wasn't funny. It was stupid. And it was, you know,
You picked up on it as an attempted joke. I thought it was an attempted publicity stunt that failed. So I
no.
wasn't even looking at it as a,
Well,
we
I
both
did.
saw two different things when we looked at him. And I think the word weird, it perfectly fits because I'm like, he's trying to bracket right now and it's not working.
I didn't
And
pick
I
up
was
on
just
it.
like, he's so awkward when he did it.
I didn't pick up on it. I heard somebody report that he said that. So clearly
Yeah.
he was trying to be clever, trying to be funny, and it's just not. I mean, it's it's weird. You talked about the audiences in Michigan. I think they got 12,000 people. In Detroit or where was Milwaukee, or they weren't in Milwaukee, wherever they were in Wisconsin, they got 12,000 people. When they went to Detroit or thereabouts, they had to change venues because they got more
Mhm.
people wanting to come than that first venue would handle. So they put it in an airplane hangar. And there were people in the hangar, there were people outside the hangar. They said anywhere from 30 to 50,000 people there. I don't know. And JD Vance is going to a police station and gets 200 people. I mean, it's got to be embarrassing for him to try to keep up that strong face when nobody gives a fuck about you.
I gotta admit, I didn't even see 200. I was like, where are the rest of the people at? I
Yeah.
did like my daughter when she does her axe throwing, like there's more people at those events than it was outside of there. And I was like, what the heck is this? Like it looked awkward. He sounded awkward. Um, and then the question that he couldn't answer, like JD Vance, you look so serious all the time. What makes you happy? Who can't answer that question? My daughter makes me happy. My volunteer work makes me happy. My patients make me happy. Like there's a lot of things like taking a walk early in the morning with my headphones in makes me happy. He was just like, I don't like getting questions like that from the press. And I'm like, this was like the easiest question that you could have answered unless you're a miserable person and it doesn't automatically like those little pleasures that make life worth living. Nothing like that popped into his brain. And I'm thinking, I kind of feel bad for him in that moment because you have to deflect because your life is that miserable. You know what I
Right.
mean? I kind of felt bad for him in a moment. I'm not gonna lie. When you say what makes you happy, what makes you smile, and for a man with a wife and children who can't think of one single thing that makes him happy, that is so depressing. Even if he is a wretched person, he should have some kind of light in his life, but he doesn't, and that's sad.
Now,
That's really sad.
you know what I find very funny? I almost laugh every time I hear it. They go, are they going to get rid of JD Vance? He's dragging down the campaign. Really? JD's the biggest problem in this campaign? How about the candidate? Donald Trump, 34 felony convictions, liable for sexual assault, stealing classified documents. it wouldn't matter who the VP candidate is for Donald Trump. He's such a shit show. He's such a piece of crap. He isn't going to
Yeah.
win. Do you feel more confident now about that win that I've been predicting all along in November, and a sizable win at that? You feeling better about that?
Yeah, I do. And one of the things that confirmed it was Republicans for Harris.
Mm-hmm.
And there was somebody in the comment section last week that picked up on this, and I was like, maybe I'm the only person that gets it. Is the reason that they have separate groups for Harris is that that's a way to isolate individual like voting groups of people and seeing where you have your strength, where you have your weaknesses, and that's where you know which audiences to target most. So it's not separating people like Fox is trying to say segregation and all this crap. That's not what it's about. You have to know where you're strong in your support and where you're lacking in your support. And so when you have these different groups for Harris, you can sit back and you can look at the amount of people that attended, the amount of money that was raised, the enthusiasm. You can look at those groups and then you could strategically know where you should be spending your money, where you should be trying to pull people from. And it's crazy that, some people didn't pick up on that, but I did see that comment last week and I was like, yeah, somebody in the comment section got it. So that's why she's doing it. It's not segregation. But I do see more and more groups that are coming from, I don't even want to say MAGA, just the Republican side that's like, we're so tired of this crap. It's the lies, it's the doom, it's the gloom. And he talks so bad about America all the time.
Yeah.
I just want to ask him, like, okay, Donald Trump, can you say one good thing about America? But I probably don't even want to know the answer because he would probably say, no, 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 no. America would be good when I'm reelected.
You got
But he
to
can't think of anything positive about us. We just suck. We're horrible. He congratulated Putin when the
yeah,
prisoner swap happened.
yeah.
You can't even say, hey, I'm so happy that they got home. Like, I wish I could have brought them under my administration, but hey, as long as they get home, who cares? He couldn't even say that. It's congratulations, Putin. I don't know what the deal is, but because of America, we suck. I bet you that deal sucks.
I got you got
Doesn't even
to
know what it is.
you got to understand the narcissistic personality, though. Everything with them is either the absolute worst or the absolute best. There's no way he can give Joe Biden a win, even in the smallest amount. Everything Joe Biden does or Kamala does is the worst, and tearing down this country, and everything he would do would be better. I mean, you're right. He is a little unhinged. I saw a Truth Social in the lead line. Now, keep in mind, this is the former president of the United States, and all it said was, "This country is going to shit." That's what he said.
Yeah.
And he went off on a rant after that as well. I mean, negatives never really work for you when you try to use them. And what he's trying to do is what the Republicans always do: try to discredit their opponents one way or another. And the only way they can do that is by saying, it's going to shit. I mean, we had this thing with the stock market where it dropped 1,000 points. See, it's going to hell. We're going to have a recession. Kamala blew this, but what happened the next day? It pumped back up again. It
You know what? He's missing the charm factor. And I know, like, people who haven't been in abusive relationships, they never understand why you just don't walk away the first time. Well, it's like, yeah, if they were an a-hole the whole time, it would be easy to walk away. So it's like when you are an abusive, narcissistic person, like, your charm and the head games that you can play with people is what keeps a person there. It's like, you're all tangled up and there's a bunch of different emotions going on. I never saw the charm factor in Donald Trump, but apparently some have. And I think what's causing Republicans to drop off is that charm factor is what's missing. So it's just like, yeah, he can beat down and talk crap and talk crap. But when do you turn on the charm to keep them there? And it's like he's missing that charming piece of being a narcissistic abuser. He's completely missing that. And so when I say he's unhinged, it's just that he's missing a key component of his pathology. It's like it's not there.
But
And
what you
it's just
have,
like you have to say, you know what, you're better when you're with me. We can do things together. I build you up, you build me up. Whatever head games you want to play with people, he lost that part of it. It's just all bad, doom and gloom,
right.
no
Well,
charm in this at all. Like, where is it?
what you have to understand is that that charm that narcissists have, that isn't a real behavior. That is a
Yeah.
strategic behavior that they
Hmm.
use. Unfortunately, Donald Trump's at a stage where nothing's working. So now he's lost the charm thing because that's not really him. He's gone into panic mode, and now it's just all negative. And that is the essence of the crash of a narcissist. When everything goes to shit, they can't talk their way out of anything anymore. It just gets all negative, maybe violent, depending on the circumstances. And that's where Donald Trump is now. And there's no coming back from that. He can't all of a sudden be charming and get people because he's scared and he's panicking and he's going to get continually worse.
You know, when you said that, it made me realize that, you know, like when you leave an abusive relationship, they try that charm to get you back. But when they realize you're not coming back, that's when it's the most dangerous for you, is
They get
because they
mad.
are unhinged and they don't have to turn on that charm and that little act that they're playing. They don't have to play that act anymore.
Right.
And so when you said that, it clicked in my mind that Donald Trump is realizing that he doesn't have to turn on that act anymore.
Well, it
He's
doesn't
seeing that
work.
we've already left him, but not only have we left him, but we've already moved on to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. So it's just kind of like, for him, it's like, forget the charm factor. I'm just going to burn this thing down to the ground, and I'm going to make it as hard and as miserable as I possibly can. And when they do stuff like that, they don't worry about their own freedom. They don't
No.
worry about their own safety, and they damn sure don't worry about the safety of anyone else around them. So I do think he is in that, they just left me, they're not coming back, I'm just to lose it. He is in that part of the abuse cycle when he realized we're not coming back. Like, he knows when people have left, they're not coming back. So he doesn't even have to pretend to turn that charm on anymore. He just, and that is so dangerous on an individual level, but this is like national, a country level. Think
Right.
about how dangerous that is. And for some reason, the DOJ has absolutely no problem with him in this state of mind having dictators and Nazis at Mar-a-Lago. No problem with that at all. And there are laws that prevent that. But
Right.
they're just sitting back and chilling. And we are the ones that's going to have to pay for it. Whatever plans or whatever he's cooking up, we're going to have to pay for that.
I think once Trump is out of the mix, out of the equation after the election, and you get somebody like Kamala, a
Yeah.
prosecutor by trade, I think
Mm-hmm.
we're going to see the DOJ used in a lot more appropriate ways, not allow people to get away with bullshit. I mean, that's what I've
Yeah.
said before about Donald Trump. He can do all he wants now while he's running for president. But once that is over, he's vulnerable. There's nothing. It's going to come raining down on him like nobody's business, and he isn't going to be able to stop it. And, like I say, when he's at that stage where the charm doesn't work anymore and he's just reacting, when he's reacting, he isn't thinking about the ramifications of what he said. I mean, whenever I get in an argument with somebody, I really measure what I say because I can have a
Mm-hmm.
sharp tongue and I know if I go to this level, this is going to come back on me later and I can hold off of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
He can't. He just throws
Yeah.
whatever comes out of his head out in front of him. He doesn't think about the ramifications. And this is why they continue to crash.
Yeah, I think that you're right, because as much as Merrick Garland tries to appear that he's apolitical, clearly he's political. I know, like, a lot of people didn't pick up on this, but trust me, my community did, when it came to the PPP loans, and people were getting arrested, like all of regular people, they getting
Right.
arrested for these PPP loans. The moment that Joe Biden started blasting Margie Taylor Greene and all of these other people in Congress for their PPP loans and them not paying it back, not only that, but they didn't qualify for that loan in the first place, all of a sudden, people stopped getting arrested for PPP loans. It was kind of like, okay, those people we caught them, but now we're going to have to start looking into Congress either. Well, I don't want to make it look like Democrats are coming after Republicans, so I'm just going to drop this whole PPP investigation stuff. So it's kind of like the people that got caught, they got caught. But as soon as you start bringing Congress into it and seeing that it was only Republicans, well, not only, but Republicans were getting caught doing this, boom, all of a sudden PPP loan investigations, they went away. So he is so caught up in, he is going to look partisan that he actually is partisan,
Right.
and he is favoring Republicans, whether he realizes it or not. But like, we noticed that real quick, like, oh yeah, these investigations going away as soon as Marjorie Taylor Greene got busted out. And it's like Joe Biden was like online busting them all out. And Merrick Garland, instead of holding them accountable, he just stopped the investigations and they just kept it pushing. Now, just imagine if they would have said, we're going to investigate everybody, whether you're in Congress or not. Just imagine the people we wouldn't even have to deal with right now that we deal with in hearings all the time. It's insane.
Well, and the thing about it is Merrick Garland, I thought like anybody else that he would do a good job, but he has been an utter failure. He really has been an utter failure. And had Biden been reelected, I think he would have gotten rid of him. But I know Kamala is not happy with the way that's gone, and he's going to be long fucking gone and good riddance. Like you say, he was so worried about being non-political, he became political, and that's just not acceptable. And I have to wonder if he doesn't realize that now that he fucked up as we get closer to the election.
I think that he has to realize it, especially when it comes to Trump. Like, sometimes I try to, you know who Glenn Kirshner is, right?
Yeah.
In my mind, I imagine him in Garland's position. And it's just like, oh, it would have been completely different. Trump would have been in jail by now. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just kind of like Tim Walz said when he was on, I want to say CNN, they're going to say whatever they're going to say anyway. That's all they do is lie. So I'm going to lie. They're going to lie on me for doing the right thing versus me not doing anything at all so that they won't lie when they're going to lie anyway. Like, that makes absolutely no sense at all. So like in my little fantasy world, Glenn Kirshner was replaced Merrick Garland. And it's like the world that we're in right now is completely different. For people who read comic books like I do, like, this is TVA, completely different time continuum in my brain. Like, this is completely different. But I mean, that's not what we have. It's just wishful thinking.
For all the years we've been dealing with this and talking about it and arguing about it and all this stuff, isn't it hard to believe that we're just 3 months away from a culmination? That election will determine a lot. And people will say, well, Donald Trump still won't go away. Well, he won't, but he won't have the cachet. He won't have the power because the Republicans will say, fucking enough's enough. You can't win anything for us. So they'll just kick him to the curb. But we're only 3 months away from getting some of this behind us. We still have to fix it, and that's going to take some time, but at least we'll get some resolution to this whole shit.
Yeah, it's like going such a long way because it's like, oh, I'm dreading this. There's so much work to do before the election, but now it's just kind of like I'm looking forward to it. I really am. And I know a lot of people were worried about, these little tricks that the 74 MAGA plans had. And I do know, I was reading Democracy Docket and I did see Brian Tyler Cohen made a video, but I read Democracy Docket. I don't typically watch it. So I'm assuming that this is what they're talking about. I'll have to watch it and confirm it. But in Georgia, they just passed a rule that makes it easier to challenge election results. But according to the docket, from my understanding, and I am a layperson, my understanding is it's just a rule. When I compare it, it's kind of like the VP certifying the election. It's just a formality. Right. So when it comes to these election deniers, what they're supposed to do is count the votes. Does the votes add up? Yes. Okay, that's it. So they can contest it all they want, but it's a rule, but the law says something different. Right. So it's like you go based off of the law, not based off of this makeup rule that they've made. I do know that Trump gave a shout out to the election deniers in Georgia, and a lot of people was concerned about it. But if you read democracy docket, it clearly states this is a rule, it's just a formality, but the actual law says that it will be certified as long as it matches up. So it's not anything that they can get away with. I don't know if it's a fear tactic. I don't know. I'm
Well,
assuming that they know what the law is versus a stupid rule that they made up. Like, I can have a rule that you don't have to wear your seatbelt when you're in my car. However, the law says that you do. So if I get pulled over, I'm still getting the ticket, even though my rule says the opposite of the law, which
right.
is stupid. I don't know if they're like putting on a show for Trump. I don't know. Like, it's just performative. And I'm thinking that's what it is because they have to know what the law is, right? Like, I don't know. I think it's performative.
I think it's
That's what
just,
I think.
I
I
think
can't think of
it's,
anything
I
else.
think it's just red meat for the dumber among us, the
Um,
Trumplafucks. Yeah,
okay.
they're fixing this for us, or even Donald Trump. They do that with everything. I'm going to impeach Joe Biden with no evidence. The fact that
Yeah.
they're saying I'm impeaching Joe Biden is going to fire these people up or encourage Donald Trump. They do this over and over again. They have all these little strategies or these claims. None of them pan out. And for whatever reason, they aren't embarrassed by it because they keep doing this shit. People worry about these the fake electors and the election deniers, these 74 that are out there. And we've talked about it a lot. I had a lady on Arlene Unfiltered. I don't know if you heard that one. She's a political science professor. Very
Mm,
smart lady. If you haven't listened to that one, old soul, you'll like that one. Listen to it because she's smart as hell. But basically, what she was saying and what I've said is people say, well, he's going to cheat in 2024. Well, of course he is. We know that,
yeah.
and that's the point. Everything that he's going to plan on doing in 2024 is exactly what they did in 2020. Now, keep in mind, he was president, they had power, and they still failed. Now we know
Yeah.
what's coming. We're preparing for what's coming, and Joe Biden's in power. So I'm not too worried about them pulling off anything they couldn't pull off in 2020. I mean, they're going to do it. It might make it a little muckier, but that doesn't mean Donald Trump's going to win. It's just not going to happen. Just not.
Wait, you said you're you saying it's red meat. That makes way more sense than what I was saying. I was thinking it's performative, but I do think what you just said makes more sense. It has to be red meat for them. But it wasn't just 2020. They tried this stuff in 2022 as well. One of the main people trying to use the system was Carrie Lake in Arizona. But she was just kind of like more out there with it, but this was going on all over the place. And Mark Goliath and his team, they were just like in state after state after state. None of this crap worked. It's like, I do think it was maybe more in 2022, maybe that could have been more. They thought they could have done something, but they didn't get away with it. But they tried it in 2020, 2022, and there's no doubt they're going to try it in 2024. But I don't see that A, that they can pull it off, and B, that they think people just gonna sit back and let them let them do that. Like, I don't think that. What are they thinking? Have you been to a Trump rally?
Plus, you have the most successful president in history with some integrity and immunity. If he sees some
Yeah.
shit going down, you don't think he's going to shut that shit down quick.
One thing that I say when I'm canvassing and like when people say something like this, one thing that I say is when it comes to a battle of wits and you put Kamala Harris up against Donald Trump, where's your money gonna go? And I have yet to have anybody say Donald Trump, even Republicans. So it's just kind of like you have to look like it at the end of the day. Which one is gonna go? Like, this isn't even Captain America Civil War. This is just kind of like Kamala Harris said, varsity versus the JV team. And this is like a JV team in elementary school versus a high school varsity team. Like, that's the gap there. I do think that they'll try it. I don't think that it'll go through.
No,
I
no,
really don't.
no.
And you got to think about it. Trump had control of the government in 2020 and they still failed. I know
Yeah.
how corrupt the Supreme Court is, but
And
The bagel of idiots is just not on the level of overturning the government. I think
it,
people are giving them way too much credit.
and yeah, they are, and they want to make it scary and stuff.
Rachel
But
Maddow messed up a lot of people with that
oh,
segment, didn't she?
she pissed me off about that. That was pretty fucked up. She knows better, and I expected better. I'm kind of feeling iffy about her. But here's the other thing
Yeah,
too: Mike Pence isn't going to be certifying the election. It's going to
yeah,
be Kamala Harris. So
yeah,
it's not. It's all just pretty ridiculous to think that. I get these people all the time saying, "Oh my God, they're going to get it." They're just waiting for something to worry about. Everything is going the way of the Democrats with Kamala and Tim Walz. Everything is going badly for Donald Trump and JD Vance and the Republicans. Let's just ride this fucking wave, keep pushing, and just win this fucking thing and be done with it instead of stressing out about every little thing that means nothing.
yeah. The one thing that Congress agreed on was, yeah, we need to make sure that we have a bill passed and it's documented that this is just performative, like it's not going to determine the outcome of the election. But
Right.
even if so, you got to think about it. Kamala Harris is overseeing this, formality for her election win. Like, do you really think you're gonna get up there and be like, yeah, I'm just gonna let them take it? Like, that's not gonna happen.
Nah. No, you got Kamala Harris, the president elect, also a prosecutor, also a VP, also
Yeah,
a former senator. I think she's got this. I think she's got it
yeah. And
covered.
Tim Walz is America's dad, but you don't mind sticking his foot up somebody's butt when you have to.
No,
He
yeah,
has a little bite to him.
he does. And Kamala is the country's TT, I guess, if I'm using
Yeah,
that term right. Auntie
she is.
Kamala.
She is.
Auntie Kamala.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm happy that people are smiling again. And when Tim Walz said, thanks for bringing the joy back, I do think a lot of people was just kind of like, yeah, it's like I don't know how people sit at a Trump rally. Noticeably, I don't know if you noticed that last one when the people behind him were going to sleep. I was watching it with the wild talk. It's like she's into politics now. Like she could tell you swing states, governors, this, that. It's insane how she caught on to it. But she was just like, you see those people falling asleep? I was just like, yeah. She was like, they cash those blacks for Trump checks, and then they don't have no choice but to go to the rally. I'm like, well, I guess if you cash your check, you gotta go. They were like falling asleep in the background. I was like, oh, this is so sad.
well, they
This is so
switched
sad.
they switched it up. They don't get the checks till they leave now because they were
But
leaving
I
ahead
seen
of.
the buses of them. Well, I didn't see it, but they saw buses of them the last time when JD Vance was out here. And I was like, they have buses out there? And they were like, yeah, we couldn't even get close to the venue. You had to have either a sticker or you had to like come in on one of the buses. Otherwise you couldn't get up there. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty sad. You got to
Yeah.
pay people to come to the rally.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. Well, we're going to wrap things up for the Rational Boomer podcast. Old Soul, thanks for coming back and joining us. I know everybody looks forward to it. I look forward to it. And it's good to get your insights from a young woman of color in Las Vegas talking to some old white guy that kind of looks like Tim Walz.
Going to Kamala Harris rally on Saturday. I'm excited.
Yeah, I
I'm
was gonna
excited.
say I was gonna say you go girl, but instead I will say you go, bruh.
All right, bro, I got you.
It's weird when a 4-year-old says that to you, man. It's just go, what? I mean, I get weirded out when my sons say it and they don't say it, but this little kid does, and she thinks it's hysterical. Anyway, thank you for coming by. It'll be interesting. When is the event? When is it coming up?
It's this Saturday on the 10th, and we're all going. We have like two bands of us that's going. I can't wait. I didn't ask because, the wild child, her grandmother, did not make plans with me. She already got her plans to go stay with my TT. I'm assuming that she's gonna come with us because she's supposed to get here Friday morning, so most likely she will. But it's gonna be a group of us that's gonna go. It's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Well,
And
that'll
it's
be
not a
good.
Trump rally. Have you ever noticed Trump? He stands up there for like 90 minutes or so and just kind of like has his little therapy session. But, Tim Walz get up there 15, 20 minutes. Kamala Harris get up there 15, 20 minutes. I like the UAW speaker up there today. And then they're like, all right, have a good one. They don't overdo it, is what I'm saying.
Well, I'll be anxious to, when you come back next week, to hear how it went. I'm sure it's going to be a hell of a time, and you'll probably have 15, 20 people staying with you after that, but we'll talk about that when that happens.
All right. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. For those of you listening, thank you for taking the time to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.